Hello. Well, today I'm speaking with my friend Alison Rees. Welcome, Alison.
Hi, good evening, Paul. Or afternoon.
Well, it's great to speak anyway. Either way, we haven't spoken for a long time, have we?
No.
But I see you undertaking church and centre and other venues, mediumship demonstrations. You're doing much more now than you ever did when we knew each other.
Oh, yes, a lot more. Got
And
two
you
churches now.
two churches. Yeah, you run into two churches yourself.
Yeah, Wings of Hope, and then I got Community of Truth down in Tyrabirth. Wings of Hope is in Ken Forest.
Excellent. The first time I knew you, you were a healer and you were working as a healer in Blackwood Spiritualist Church.
Yes, I was, and I was also doing the closed circle as well, teaching in there. And I was there for quite some time in Blackwood Spiritualist Church, but then then I was doing the healing, and I passed with the SNU, so an improved healing medium. And I kept my qualifications up, and I still do healing as well as many other things.
Married lady with kids and dogs.
Yeah, three pugs, two cats, two kids,
And
which are growing up.
you've lived in other countries of Europe as well.
Yeah, I lived in Spain and lived there for a couple of years. And then I came back because I'd met my husband out there, and I stayed in Camp Forest.
And,
Yay!
and hubby is a successful businessman running fruit and veg
Yes,
outlet.
down in Fleur de Lis.
Excellent.
Yes.
So when we first started sitting together, because we were sitting for physical phenomena ourselves,
Yes.
you told me an interesting story about attempting to witness a Scott Milligan seance. So can you talk about that? When and where?
Attempting is a good word.
When and where? What did it take place? Can you remember, Alison?
Oh, I've slept since then. I can't remember where we went, but uh, we went up. There was four of us in a car, and Nicola Dent, and yeah, guy that used to come to our trance circle as well. Uh,
Oh, that would have been Neil Powell.
I said Neil Powell.
Neil
Always
Powell.
getting names mixed up and terrible names. And we drove up, and there was a young lady we met that day in the car, and we drove up to see Scott Milligan. And I'd been to a trance service before, and I was fine. You know, you take your rings off and not allowed to take your asthma pump in and stuff like that. Nothing shiny, and that was great. You know, and you felt spirit touch you, and a lot of different voices, and they were speaking to other people. I never got spoke to, but the lady I was with then, she knew the gentleman that was speaking, and the spirit person. And but when I went up to see Scott Milligan, we went in and we all sat down, and I, luckily enough, Nicola Dent, this friend of mine, was sitting next to me. And the girl that we came up in the car with, she was sitting opposite, just towards the door. I think it was only about 3 minutes in, and they had to stop it, and they had to pick the girl up off the floor. She had passed out.
This was the other person who travelled up
Yeah,
with you.
this is the other person that travelled in the car. And so I thought, oh, because I knew from the last time I'd been to a seance how much energy it takes out of the medium. And so I said, silly enough, I said, please, spirit, take what energy you need, because you'll need healing and energy after. And I didn't even get to finish the sentence, and I could see this ball of purple energy come straight towards me, hit me in the chest. I couldn't breathe. And Nicholas says to my left, she said, you okay? I went, I started passing out myself. So two gentlemen, they picked me up because she said, you have to stop the music because he started again. And that's what happened. And they picked me up, took me out into another room. And I came to my senses then. And they gave me a cup of tea. I'd never drank. I hate tea. Oh gosh, it was really nice, this tea with sugar in. And so I drank that, and me and this woman was talking, and I said, oh, I've never experienced that before. And so we decided to sit closer to the door to hear what was going on. And both of us were passing out again. So the fella had to take the two of us and sit us down to the furthest end of the room, and we had to stay there. And it cost us the full money, and we never got money back. Didn't even get a seance.
Well, I suppose you took up two places, and it wasn't their fault that you couldn't. Was it in the dark when you?
Yeah, it was total black.
Total black. So they were very good then to stop the seance. And
well, when the girl passed out, we heard a voice saying, "She's gone. She's on the floor." And I thought, "Who's on the floor?" Because
was that an earthly voice? It wasn't a spirit voice?
No. That was the person that must have been next to the lady that was there, and I still don't know her name. And I'm terrible in this. And the person by the next to her, because you all had to hold hands, because you weren't allowed to leave go. And she went down. You were still holding her hand, so the lights came back on, and but not the whole thing. It was just by the door, and you could see it on the floor. And she was the guy was still holding her hand, and so then I can't remember who picked it up, but somebody picked it up. I mean, she was flat out.
Well,
and they took it out into the room. Once she was in the other room, she started coming back around pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then they closed the door and they said, right, and we start singing again. And that's when I was saying, talking spirit, give out energy. And that's when I seen the ball of energy coming towards me. And I thought, oh, Gordon Bennett, here we go.
So that energy was coming towards you, not extracting from you.
No. It was because I see colours anyway. Because I'm working medium myself, and also I see auras and colours and all that, and different colours mean different things to me, and like any medium, they all work differently.
Right.
But I sent it out, you see, my energy, and I said, please take whatever you need. Silly girl, say. I was young at the time, foolish and young, and from nowhere, not from Scott though.
No.
It was coming across from like the centre of the room, came straight towards me.
Right.
And it hit my chest, and I was like, and I couldn't breathe in or out.
Right.
And it was just like passing out, because even though it was black, I knew that I was going down.
But you could see it purple in your mind's eye.
I could see purple with my physical eyes. That's what that's what it looked like to me.
In a black room.
But I don't think it must have been my mind's eye, because nobody mentioned the purple thing.
No, but it's probably you in your mind's eye because you're a medium, but it probably had its own light.
It did.
Yeah.
And it was fast.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. And it probably hit you right underneath the sternum bone in the center of your chest.
Yeah, center, bang, straight in there.
Because that's where the nervous system is. And if you were in a martial art and you hit somebody right there, just below the navel, below the sternum, if you push your finger in there, it's very sensitive. That's the center of the sympathetic nervous system. That can knock out your breathing.
It did.
It obviously
I didn't have a physical wallop.
No.
I had a psych, like you can use psychic knocks and stuff like that. But he was bang straight to the chest. So I could explain it, and I just went, and that was it. And that's what Nicola heard was the, and she said, "You all right?" And she was holding my hand, and I go, and then she said, "Can you stop the music? Somebody else has gone."
Well, I'm probably going to have to get in touch with Nicola now to hear her test, because she stayed in the room then, did she?
Yeah, she did. And apparently there was little children running around, and they were getting squirted with water. We just heard the laughing from where we were.
From way back in the ante.
Yeah. We did hear a booming man's voice, but we couldn't, from how far we were, couldn't make out what he was saying anyway.
Fascinating.
But what fascinated me and annoyed me at the same time, because I couldn't go back in the room, is soon as I went by the door, because me and the girl was so nosy, we go like that to the door, say the door was viewing, go like that, and we started going down. And I was just like, okay, we can't do that. The guy who said, oh, you can't do that, and he give us more tea.
Yeah, they should have been paying you to give that much energy.
Thing is, I haven't stopped drinking tea since, and I never drank it before.
Well, maybe. Well, I'm right there with you. I'm a proper teapot. It sounds to me as if Neil Powell was involved, you went up to the borders with England by Welsh Pool.
Yeah, it was England.
I think it's Shropshire. I bet that's the place I went with Neil to see David Thompson.
Yeah, because we were in a barn at one place, and it was like a farm place. I'm not sure where that was. Ask
Right.
Neil.
Yeah,
He
I haven't
wouldn't
seen
know.
Neil for a while. What about the other seance you witnessed?
Well, that was totally different because I didn't send up my energy anyway. I was just like, first time, you wrap yourself up, protection and all that, because you don't know what to expect. And we went in there, and if you couldn't get your rings off, they had to put black tape on your rings. We went in and same again, hold hands, and there was children running around there, but that was more towards the end. But there was a gentleman, very, very Magnus, the name was said, and it was some other gentleman came through, which I can't remember if it was Gordon Higgins or one of the other ones. But there was two people onto my left-hand side that knew him, that worked with him. And on my right-hand side was Sean Evans, that used to run Blackwood Spiritualist Church. And she said, I know that fella. I know his voice, because she had recordings of him.
Right, Gordon.
And so it must have been Gordon Higgins. It must have been. So I said, oh, okay. And she was squeezing, because she's afraid of the dark. She was squeezing the heck out of my hand. And so I said, tighten, loosen your grip, like it tight. And they had this big board towards the door. And because before they started, they had people that they randomly picked to tie him down with them tie things that you put on your car. And they also, when right at the end, there was a big massive bang, which frightened the light out of everybody. And there he was on this, out of the cabinet, on this piece of wood with a really thick, solid chair, carved chair, and his cardigan was on backwards.
Well, it sounds like David Thompson, that does.
But he's still strapped to the chair.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, how do you get over there then?
Yeah.
Simple questions like that.
I think that sounds like a David Thompson seance. But the guide you mentioned was the guide of Colin Fry, known as Lincoln. He had the guide Magnus.
Well, it was Neil I went with again. And
it's probably David Thompson. Because,
and he said that was Magnus, because I didn't know who that was.
I think David Thompson's guides uses a different name, like William.
Oh, there was a William spoken then in the same.
Might have been Magnus. Yeah, that's very interesting. The lady I used to sit with in Clevedon, things like what you've described used to happen when we'd be traveling over there. It's an hour and a quarter's journey. And if Neil was driving and I was a passenger in the back, maybe Hazel in the front, if I was in the back, because I prefer to sit in the back if I can, if I can have a snooze then, I find myself fall asleep very quickly and easily, but you could feel a pull from your solar plexus.
Yeah.
It was like as if you had a wet towel attached and somebody was turning it, and then,
Yeah, I know the pull.
It was that pull. So, yeah, Magnus was her guide as well. So I've had long conversations with Magnus. When you hear the tape recordings of Colin Fry with Magnus, and also hearing the lady in Clevedon, they're the same man, only Colin Fry was a young man. He was a younger Magnus. And with...
Well, yes, that's the thing. I think with physical and trance and that, I think there's a lot of borrowing guides basically for that one night. Yeah. I don't think they, because if you've got somebody,
no,
Now, if you've got somebody that's got that knowledge in the spirit world and they need that knowledge there, you're going to turn up to help, and you.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I think, because I only know this through healing, because I be healing, and I know that because I got somebody else now. I got Jan is doing healing with me, and he will. I've had one of his guides come right by the side of me and says, "We are helping," and so I thought, okay, I just carry on. But I know when me and Nicola used to heal together, um, our guys, there's no point having a brain surgeon if you've got back problem. So, they bring in who they need. And if they're working with somebody else and then they finish, they'll come and work with whoever needs them. That's what I think.
Yeah, so you might be right then. It might have been Magnus. The one time that the lady in Clevedon, she had this throat operation, the one seance after that, the recording of Magnus on that particular session was like the recording of when he was with Colin Fry as a young man. But only that one time after the throat operation. Presumably they used the voice box different.
Yeah, because they don't want to hurt
Body.
the vessel, do they?
No, they didn't want to hurt her, maybe. But otherwise, you could hear the mannerisms were the same. But it was an old Victorian gentleman with a lady in Clevedon and a young man, well, same man with Colin Fry. The same personality, same laughter. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, any other physical mediums you've witnessed?
Well, I only went to them after the passing out. It frightened me for to visit other people,
Yeah,
but I started sitting from trance myself then,
yeah. So,
as you well know,
as
because
well
you were
as I
my
well know,
anchor.
because and it was in this room behind me
Yeah.
in that direction. We used to record an Indian gentleman, didn't we? Your guide, beautiful voice would come through. I don't
Yeah.
know whether I've got the recordings. I should have, but it wasn't as clear conversation. But he definitely made a wonderful sound, didn't he? What are your
Uh,
recollections of that
um,
from the?
well, the thing is, when I used to be with you, I was in and out. So it was like some parts I would retain, and I know I was losing time because it was just like, when are we starting? One time I'd be like, when do we start now? And I think, and you were calling me back, and I think, hold on, I've just sat down, and I haven't had no recollection at all what happened. And then other times I would hear something being said, and I thought it was you and Nicola or whoever was there talking, and it was spirit talking, but because the only way I could describe it is like I'm on drugs. I can use something, but I don't really care. That's the only way I can explain it. That's the way that they've done it with me.
Yeah,
And then, but when I used to sit, because I didn't realize that I was sitting for quite some time on my own anyway.
yeah,
And they said, "Oh, you can't sit on your own for trance. You got to be protected." I said, "Well, I've been doing it for a long time on my own,
yeah,
and I hadn't seen no problem with it. My guides, I rely on my guides for my protection, as long as you send your intent and you believe in your guides and you trust your guides, as well as you got to have a certain amount of parts is believing in yourself too. So when he used to keep me to a certain point that I could hear them talking through, but I could only answer in my head. So, and I used to do that upstairs. So I don't know what part of that was. I think I was especially for me, I think. But yeah, and then I started doing mirror work so I could see it, talk, and hear all at the same time.
right. Let's go back to the beginning then. So how did you start to develop
My
the
mother.
trance state?
My mother, the first time I went into trance was with my mother, and I was 15 at the time. And I got frightened, really frightened, because my grandmother, which was my stepdad's mother, she came through, and she was a big lady. So she was, and she had a strong personality, and she was coming through, and I was scared. So my mother asked to step back because she was my anchor then. And we
Yeah,
weren't doing trance, we were just talking. And I
right,
went down.
right.
because my mother used to sit for trance.
Right. So
And
she
she had,
experience. Yeah.
when we went to a circle in, I think it was Treorchy, I think, and a long, long time ago. And first time I ever seen my mother, she said, have a look at this. And they were all gathered round, and I thought, let's have a look at my mum then. And she had a bonnet with fine, fine smoke
Wow.
all around her head with a rosette. And it was the Sally Army lady. And she spoke.
Wow.
My mother spoke. But
The
my mother, her
transfiguration,
main
isn't it?
guide was her Chinese fella.
Yeah.
And I
Was
can't
that,
remember his name.
was that bonnet a transfiguration, or was it
Yeah.
a
It was
mask
not,
that
well, at the time I didn't know nothing about really of that end, because
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was naturally learning, because my mother used to naturally learn, because I was learning from spirit and my mother at the time. And it was
Yeah.
only until I was, I think, about 19, my mother said, right, you've got to go to a circle now. And then I went to a spiritualist church in Porthcawl.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the lady that was on there, first time the lady was on there, I thought she was personally talking to me.
Right.
That's how it was received. And I looked and I could see like everybody had sparked up a cigarette, and it was this still white smoke everywhere. And I thought, oh, I think that's spirit. And that's a week later, then I started seeing colours.
Oh, lovely.
People underestimate energy for a start, because the mind is a very strong instrument. And if you visualize something and you want something bad enough, it will start to take form of what you need, because power of prayer. I believe that, because I've done prayer for a total stranger, and they've come and they outlived my uncle. He was my uncle's friend, and I was saying a prayer for her because she was supposed to be a death's door.
Yeah.
And she, within, I think, about 2 days, whoop, she's back out of hospital and she's back home and she's fine. And my uncle died before her. Wow. So, I wasn't going to ask my uncle because, he needed to go. No.
Your mother was obviously a very effective psychic when you were in Spain.
Yes, my mother used to do.
And she warned you about a certain alleyway or passageway.
Yes.
Or lane.
Before we lived out in Spain, we used to go out a month on holiday at Christmas time and 2 weeks in May. And she was doing my cup, because that's how she started. She made me learn in play. Like they do in the kids in school. She said, I should be doing a cap. You say, well, you're saying, I can't do nothing. Oh, there's a rabbit in there. And then
you're talking about reading tea leaves, aren't you? Let's
make that clear. With tea leaves. Then she would be doing the cards. And then she'd be going, what does that make you feel like? I said, I don't know. So I pick it up like that. And I said, it's just a guy. But I would start seeing it here, but I wouldn't realize I was doing it. And I was just, to me, it was this make-believe. And it's this, I could never see myself doing it, but yet I was doing it.
Yeah. What about the warning then that your mother gave you when you were in Spain?
When we were before we got to Spain, we were on the docks. We were, and she said, look, there's going to be. I'm always the one for taking shortcuts. I am, right, and as long as I can get to my bed, I don't care. And so she said, you'll be going on. She said, it looks like a railway, but it's not. But they were railway sleepers that I was walking on. And she said, and there's a break in the road. And she said, from break in the path, there's a road. And she said, before you get to it, you'll see somebody and they'll wave to you and they go, hola. And she said, that will be your sign. And she said, and you hear my voice. And she'll say, do not take the shorter route, take the longer route. And the longer route was about half an hour, where I could do in 10 minutes. I could get up that thing, because I had to go out along the road, up along the do a carriageway type thing, and I had to come all the way back round the same length that I would walk that way to the left to come back to the hotel. And there was a woman and her daughter was in front of me, a good couple of paces in front of me. And when I seen the fella, I heard my mother's voice. And I heard her repeat it, don't go the shortcut, go the long way. So, right. So then I went the long way round. So the woman and her daughter had got accosted in that short walkway. with all the it looked like railway sleepers again on the other side, and they didn't rape them because the mother was fighting like a mother would.
Yeah.
But they took all their belongings and that, and they gave them a bit of a slap around.
Oh.
And so then they ran off to the hotel. When my mother was coming out of one of the rooms where they had this Spanish dancer, and she said, "Where the hell's Alison? She should be coming home this time." And I came in about, I think it was a good 20, 25 minutes after them had been there, and they got the police and that. And I thought, "What's going on, ma'am?" You know, and she said, "Where you been?" And I said, "Oh, well, you told me to go the long way round." And that's when she knew they'd fulfilled this purpose. So
lovely. Well,
I was in a restaurant with my parents, and we were on the like veranda type of thing. And I heard 2 words. There's 2 men talking. I heard 2 words. And my guide said, leave now. And we just had our drinks. I said, "Mum, Dad, let's leave." And they said, "Where else?" I said, "Leave now." And my mother, because I don't use that tone of voice with my parents, my mother said, "Billy, move." And we moved, and they started a fight. And the freezer came out because it landed against the freezer, landed on our table.
Good heavens.
So,
yeah, wonderful. Wonderful warning from Spirit.
Yeah, I do have a lot of warnings from Spirit.
We do here as well. Well, Margaret was in the house alone one day, and Spirit said to her, "Lock the back door." So on that occasion, because it was a lovely day, she was in and out of the back garden. She hadn't locked the door. There was no reason to.
Yeah.
But that day, then I'm not sure if she did lock it or not, but there was an axe murderer wandering around the village, and he killed. It was probably about the same time. It's on Sky TV. It's on. They made a documentary about it. You'd be foolish not to pay attention to a spirit's warning. That's the bottom line. They also give us not Grand National winners now and again. I can remember being told
I had £20,000 for Spirit.
Go on, because that one.
I didn't have. I couldn't afford a new outfit.
It was when we were sitting, wasn't it?
Yeah, I couldn't afford. I couldn't afford nothing to give to my son for the wedding, and I couldn't afford a new outfit or anything like that. And even my car was just like going, "I'm limping here, you know, I'll keep you going just for another mile." And I said, "Look, Spirit, I said, I need help." I said, "Mum, Dad, we're crying out loud, give us some financial help. I know you're not supposed to ask, but they say, well, why not?
Don't ask, you don't get.
If you don't ask, you don't get. And not only that, if you do ask, and it's not, it won't benefit your soul, it won't benefit your life and make it better, then they won't give it to you." So I goes to the petrol station, and I said, "Can you check these tickets?" And I've been walking around for 2 weeks after I had asked them for 2 weeks for this ticket. And she went, "Oh, I can't pay you this, love." She said, "You'll have to go to the post office." And oh God, I go back up to the post, up the house now, and because you have to take your passport. And I said, "Just for curiosity, how much can you pay out?" And she said, "Oh, up to £500. I thought, yes, I got more than £500. I can give something to my son for the wedding.
And that was a lottery ticket, was it?
It was a lottery ticket, but it wasn't the lottery numbers. It was the they used to have a registration, like a rose, but it said Ruby. It was the Ruby, and then XYZV23, and all. It was like that. I got the thing in there.
Oh, it was one of the numbers that they pay out on.
Yeah, the raffle number one.
Raffle number. Yeah, I remember now.
And I didn't look at the thing until I actually got to the post office, and I said, "Oh, by the way," I said, "how much have I won?" She said, "Oh, I'm not allowed to tell you." She said, "But I can show you." So she gave me the piece of paper, and I said, "You're joking." And because we were talking in like Braille type of thing, you know, and by this point, and this one woman said, "Oh, if it was me, said I would lock up." I said, "I'd go home." I said, "I'd be so excited." So everybody now thought they'd won the big one. I hadn't, so I put my
No, but you'd
husband, I
run in
said,
after you. Yeah.
I put my husband, I said, we won the lottery. And he said, yeah, right. He didn't believe me. I said, no, honestly. So I put the woman on. He thought I had in the wind-up. So when I got into the car, because she said, do you want some cash as well? And I said, no, just straight check. So I got in the car and I said, oh, thanks, Spirit, and all that. And I looked at it and it said, Ruby. That's my mum's name.
Oh, lovely.
And I looked at the car in front and there was the bull. I always associate that with my dad
Right.
for Spain.
Right.
And I thought, that's the Spanish bull.
Well,
And then I realized was my parents had some
yeah.
involvement in it.
Oh,
I said, thank you. And I got to my husband then and I cried.
I bet, yeah. How
So,
lovely is that?
and I had a new car out of that
Oh,
as well.
no.
When I sit, I take deep breaths and you bring in, you fill your lungs up as much as you can. And then you breathe naturally. And some people don't, but I do. And I think it's different for everybody because nobody is, everybody is individual. And my guides then will come in like, it's like I'm being fed drugs. I relax my mind so much and relax my body so much. And it feels like if anybody's had an operation, they had the mask on their face, and you say, right, you count backwards and you go 1, 2, and you feel that sense coming in. I call it going down the rabbit hole because then it's just nothing. It's just you wake up and you think, oh, right, I've had the operation. Oh, right, I've done trance. But there's before that stage I had where it was, how can I explain it? I was breathing and you can feel the energy coming in. You feel your guides coming in and it can get really strong. But I like that sort of thing. I like to know they're there. And they come in strong and you can feel an energy here, an energy there. They say, relax. I hear their voices saying, relax. And they say, she's not doing it. She's not listening. And you get told off a lot. I do. And then I relax a bit more. But it's trying to get your thought pattern out here. Yeah, it's about trusting yourself, trusting your guides, and letting go and allowing the energy to do what it needs to do. Because you've got surgeons, you've got chemists, you've got everybody on behind you in your soul group. You've got everybody in that trans soul group to come forward and take care of you because you're the most important person to them. Because they love you unconditionally and they would not allow anything to happen to you. So yeah, you got to trust, and it's a hard thing sometimes, and you got to have patience.
It can take ages, can't it?
Oh yeah. But I've read about Silver Birch where he just went into a open circle and sat, and it can happen like that. And then there's others that have to work on it really hard because I think it's the level of where your gifts are. Because I don't think we're just born with one gift. No. We're born with many gifts.
Well, you've tried quite a few of them now, haven't you?
Yeah.
Demonstrating mental mediumship.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very interesting. And I witnessed some of the results and, it was lovely to hear.
Because there was different stages we had to go through for me to get to that stage. I would hear a voice and sometimes it'd be you, sometimes it'd be Nicola, sometimes it would be Linda or somebody else that was there. And so I would hear, but I wouldn't hear all the conversation. I'd hear little bits. And I know why. It was because I was fighting to stay conscious because I was nosy.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that's what they were trying to stop me from being nosy.
Yeah, they were. I remember that. You'd go in and out, wouldn't you?
And I was like going, what are you doing now? What are you doing now? And they're going, shut up. I'm going, yeah, but I want to know what I'm doing now. And because I'd be talking to my guides all the time.
Yeah.
And then I'd have somebody go, sleep. And I go, I don't want to go sleep. And I argue with them. And they go, relax. I don't want to relax. And then, but my main guide that used to come in and go, Alison. And I go, sorry. Gone. I'd listen to him.
Yeah. You've got a mirror behind you, and you mentioned mirror work earlier. And I know we used to talk about it when you used to visit. what was mirror work all about then?
Mirror work was about me seeing. I wanted to see spirit. And I know you can do lots of things with mirrors, the black mirror and all that. And you've got to, where one mirror is an opening, you've got to have another one that actually close. But yeah, and you've got to look after them a certain way. You can only use the mirror for that specific thing. And also you have to keep it covered and, shut it down. And so you've got to take them steps into consideration if you're going to use a mirror. You can't just use this ordinary one that I just brush my hair in.
All right. Yeah.
Because where you look, that's where your energy goes. So you're projecting energy into your mirrors. That's why you keep it solely for that.
Right.
You're projecting energy in that mirror. So I asked to see spirit. I said I wanted to see my guides and I want to see my loved ones. I said, but mainly I want to see my guides because I've seen my loved ones before. I know what they look like, and I know they're in spirit. So I was sitting there and I was going down the trance state. I was asking for trance and that. And because every time I sat from then on, I was just putting the mirror in front of me and see what happens. And my guide, my main guide said, open your eyes. And I went, okay. So I opened my eyes and there was a guy in the mirror.
Wow.
Sitting in my chair, but I knew I was sitting in my chair.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, wow. And then he moved. And then I went, oh, because I didn't expect him to move. And of course, you're out of the energy then, so you see yourself again.
All right.
So then you've got to put yourself back in that energy again. And so it takes a bit of time, a bit of practice. And the more you practice, the more you can go in that energy quicker. And then I seen him again, the same guy, and he was still. And I was like, okay. And he went, and he winked at me. Oh, I pooped myself again. And then I thought, right, I've got to get a handle on this. So a few times then he came and he sat in the mirror. And then I realized there was a different background to what I had to me. So I knew there was clothes behind me, but behind him, there was a sky.
Oh,
and I went,
wonderful.
Oh, cool. And then I started seeing different people. But when you do the clear knowing where there's a lady here and she's wearing a dress and what color it is and the hair, I knew they were my guides. They were part of my soul group,
Just
not
knew.
my main guide. I've seen
Yeah.
my main guide. I know
Yeah.
my main guide. I've even got his voice on a recording, my main guide.
Yeah.
But I knew that they were part of whatever I needed in my soul group. They would be the information, the ones that would help me on my path.
Yeah.
So, but I was always waiting for my mum or dad. And
Yeah. So did that take place in the light of just an ordinary light of the day, or?
Then I used to sit dead on 7 o'clock because
Yeah.
I used to make a time slot because I was so busy. I say, right, that time slot, I'm working for you.
Yeah. So that would be in the dark outside in winter time.
Dark in winter.
But you'd have a light on in the house, in the room.
I used to have red light.
Red light.
Yeah. But then when summer came, I didn't have a light, and it was light enough to see like we are now.
Yeah.
So, and I've done it for demonstration in my own place as well. When I'm doing circle, I don't do it for the open circle. That's too far for them. Yeah. But in closed circle, because it's like two people that don't like it in closed circle. So I do it I will tell them when I'm going to do it, so they don't come, but they still come. They still go, I still want to have a nose,
Yeah.
But it still freaks them out. But the other ones love it. And I used to go into trance as well. My guide, I say demonstration for my guides for demonstration.
Lovely. So was that ever filmed by any chance?
No, I never thought of it.
I know a lot of people don't.
I don't think of it at the time.
That was transfiguration, that what you were seeing in the mirror was actually happening over your face.
It wasn't just my face, it was my whole body.
Yeah. The full form transfiguration then, wouldn't it?
Because I didn't see, as well as I don't know about transfiguration, because behind me, there was clothes with me. But in the mirror, there was the sky.
The sky.
So
well,
I think...
that's a Fascinating idea, fascinating phenomena.
Yeah, I think it might have been either I was seeing behind or I was just seeing it here. I don't think it was transfiguration.
Yeah.
Transfiguration is just here.
Yeah. But when I do spirit art, I do it in mentally, and it's to me, I raise myself up and go into a room above me that is an artist's studio.
Yeah.
And then I'm sitting there in the artist studio with a portrait person that is to sit in front of me. It's all mental, this is. And then I draw what I'm seeing. And that's the way I do. I'm not very
I
good
go
at it.
to an auditorium when I do healing, and it's a big auditorium, and everybody
Your mind's
when I'm
eye.
doing and everybody gives the healing to the same point to give out to the world and to whoever needs it. So when I do a collective healing.
Have you had any remarkable healings take place?
I just tell you about the one healing experience I've done. When I was in Bargoed in the other church, I was given a healing, and nobody knew that she has paralysis down the one side. It doesn't work very well. She can't feel nothing. And my fingers, they should have been there, the tips of my fingers.
Yeah.
It'd gone. This side had gone on my right-hand side. It'd gone.
Matched her paralysis.
Yeah. So, but ever since then, because I've given her healing a few times, she's started having feeling back in the arm.
Oh, wonderful.
So she said she's not used to it. She's like it now.
You can feel it.
I've had
out-of-body experience
once, and that was when my mother, just after I had that, my mother took me to the church, and because I went, let me explain. It was like underwater. I could breathe, but I shouldn't be able to breathe. And I could see all these different shipwrecks, and but I could see it clear, like there wasn't any water there.
Right.
And it was all different times of shipwrecks. Some were, galleons, and some were modern, and that. And there was a big, massive rock crevice thing. I knew that I was with somebody, and I couldn't see my body or anything. I didn't even think to look for my body, but I was looking with my eyes. And I knew if I went through this round crevice rock formation, I wouldn't come back. And when I realized that, I went like that, and I opened my eyes, and I had a blue light going across here, and I went boom, straight back in my body, because I was attached back to front. And I'll never forget the feeling that you have when you go boom back in your body, because it's a jolt in. There's a big jolt.
A lot of people call it sleep paralysis at night, don't they, where they feel themselves falling, and then sometimes
it wasn't sleep paralysis when I seen that blue light going across my face.
No, but other people commonly experience something similar, don't they? The jolt.
Yeah, I can understand sleep paralysis because I woke up and my arm is dead. There's nothing I can do. It's just all dead. So that's part of like sleep paralysis. Now I haven't been leaning on it. It's just won't come back to life for a couple of minutes. Wow. But then, when you're seeing things, and what I was experiencing at the time, it was all connected.
Right. What do you suppose that blue light was then?
I think it was just energy.
Right.
But I think I was in a protective bubble at that point.
Yeah. So how did you realign everything? Your arm and front?
Well, that, because it went boom back in, it took me a few minutes to get my awareness back. And I'm going to call it now. It was just when my thoughts are all scattered. But now with my awareness back, and then I was okay, because it's like if I stood up, I would have fallen down. It was like not being drunk, because you're not that way, but it's just you're like on a boat. The only way to explain it is just you haven't got your senses back. So I waited for that, and then I went downstairs. So about 18 when that happened. Weren't long then. My mother took me to the church. Spirit is working on a different way to trance now. I think the energy, instead of ectoplasm, they're doing a different type of energy that doesn't, not so much risk to the sitter.
Yeah.
And that way then is I think they don't take them so deep
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
And also they're giving them the memories of what's happening as well after the fact if they got no memory. So I do think that is a lot better for the medium itself, because they could, the many young mediums died young years ago through light and also dirt, because with ectoplasm, dirt came. If you had a dirty room, then that dirt would go back in.
Yeah, I think Alan Duncan found a pin inside her after one such seance once. You're right. What do you think that energy is now then in this modern way of working?
I don't think it's I think it's a lighter energy. I don't know what they call it at the moment. Somebody will put a name to it. And but I don't think it's ectoplasm. Because ectoplasm to me feels heavy and dense, and the way that it, because when the last time I sat with you, I was retching. Every so often I'd have that retch. It was like something coming out.
Yeah.
And it would make me retch. I think it's more of a light, a gas or something, instead of more of a physical thing.
Right.
I hoping that's going to be the same, because I started back sitting by myself at the moment.
All right.
And I'm looking for a daytime trance, but I don't want to run it, and I want to just give energy, because if you're a sitter, you're just giving energy and not the one in the cabinet. You still learn, you still develop. If you're doing mental mediumship, you'll develop more of that. If you want to develop your sight, whatever gifts is at the surface at the time, you'll start developing more with that. So that's why I believe in it.
I did say to Warren Buckley, I was thinking about it again.
Well, if you were going to do it
one of your sitters
in the daytime light, that'd be really cool if you could have a daytime light, and that would then
be cool, wouldn't it? Be
if
all
it's
year
going
round
to
daytime
be,
light.
if it's going to be a transfiguration or deep trance for anybody, everybody's got to see it.
Yeah.
So it's not in your mind's eye. No. It's not, it's got to be physical. I want people to see themselves for who they truly are.
Yeah. Have you seen a full form materialization at all?
Only in mirror form, and and I seen a hand, but that was it was just, well, not a whole hand. It was just 3 fingers, and it was forming on the table. And because we used to hold trance up in Wings of Hope, and there was only 4 of us who was, and we'd take it in turns to see who was developing. And when I was being the anchor, and I looked to the one side, and I just nudged the guy, I won't say his name, the guy beside him. I went, the table. And he could see the 3 fingers as well. There was just forming like smoke, like a white smoke, a luminous white smoke. And it was just starting like that. And then it just disintegrated then. It just nothing.
And that was in light, was it?
That was in red light.
Red light.
Always done in red light. So that way then you can see what's going on.
Yeah. And we used to use blue light.
Pardon?
Didn't we use blue light?
I can't remember what light you had. I was always behind the curtain. I
think you liked the idea of blue light, but there probably was only a red bulb in the box.
I know I done trance up in Nicola's house, and we had a lot of philosophers came through on that, and there was a lot of banging and tapping every time we had something right. There was a lot of confusion about music because none of us could sing, and they weren't too happy with our voices.
No, your singing's dreadful, isn't it?
Yeah, well, when we were sitting for somebody else, and I started singing to the music, and they did not want me to sing. I'm tone deaf anyway, so
yeah. Except when your guide would sing, if I remember rightly. We should have some recordings where there was
somebody, because I remember listening to the recording, and there was some guy, and it sounded like an old gramophone.
Yeah.
And he was singing it to his wife.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that one. And we knew it wasn't you because you couldn't.
I can't sing.
No, your singing really is diabolical. I remember
yeah,
standing.
he was like,
You were behind me in Blackwood Church at one time. Weird, yeah.
apologize for that.
Yeah.
Because you were there
No,
going,
that's
what
right.
the hell?
We did record some nice singing, didn't we? Oh, I'm gonna have to try and find the recordings.
Yeah, because there was he said the closest I can think of his voice was that it was like a gramophone record, and he was doing that ooh type of what do they call it? I don't know what they call it. He was singing anyway. It was better than I could do,
Yeah,
and it was
anything was better
male.
than you could do.
Well,
Yeah, and it was
so
male. Yeah, yeah.
but it was a lot of males used to come through. It was only I think it was only about 2 females that ever came through that I heard on the recording, because if they because there was a lot of sounds as well as one time when we were doing ums
Yeah.
and after the seance, and we were doing the and we carried along and then we stopped all singing and the ums carried on. I thought, okay. So yeah, I think I was when the Ghostbusters was with us, wasn't it?
I don't remember. You might be right. Yeah.
Because there was two couples. They were Ghostbusters. They were.
Yeah. Was that the guy who we could hear the ticking noise? I said, "What's that?"
Yeah, and it was his
ticking?
heart.
What's that ticking? He says, "My
Yeah,
pacemaker." Well, that's very interesting, Alison. Fabulous discussion we've had today.
We wait 1 minute now.
Okay.
We have message for all,
Thank you.
for circle. We are taking time to produce ectoplasm, photosynthesis. We produce, takes time. Thoughts produce energy, you are energy. All this combined takes time. Will happen, voice from loved ones. Will happen with all loved ones.
Thank you. Oh, that's lovely.
Won't come first, guides come first.
Okay.
Show way for loved ones to be here. We'll need patience, we'll need faith and trust on all. Commitment to oneself and us. For you are us as we are you. Bless you, my friend.
Bless you.
Bless you. Bless you.
Beautiful.
It's like a shoe in my back. Yeah.
Mundai Uleo Epsa Oe Ahinda.
Thank you.
God, that's good.
Much.